I want to tell you what, the singing tonight was just phenomenal. All of it sounds marvelous. And it's great to hear you lift your voice. It's something about Christmas music. Maybe it's because we only get to sing it one time of the year, but boy, it just brings something out in you, doesn't it? And those of you that are guests with us here tonight, we are thrilled that you have stopped by this evening and to share at a time of not only of singing and celebration, we're going to have communion together in just a few moments, and then we will be sharing in a time of candlelighting at the end of our service. I want to make sure that everybody that wanted a candle got one. Yes? Anybody need a candle? Need one candle in the back if somebody could take care of our friends back there. We'll be doing that in just a few moments. We're going to take communion together first, and then we'll circle up kind of around the room and up the aisles, and we'll pass the candlelight through the room and spend some time singing Silent Night together. I'm going to ask my usher friends who I talked to before, if you'll come up here. We're going to pass out the communion elements tonight instead of you coming forward, simply because this will be a little, probably, I hope, a little more simple than all of us trying to make our way. Now, I need to tell you, we have 100. You got 2 hands, buddy. If you don't mind. We have 151 chairs, and we have 160 communion cups. So this ought to be really close. You can get it, can't you? All right. All right. While they're passing the elements out, when we get to the end here, if you need to have a communion cup brought to you, if you'll let me know, we'll make sure that you get one. Those of you that are with us each week, our Christmas series was entitled, Thy Kingdom Come. And we actually have been looking at the text from the 9th chapter of Isaiah, which was a prophecy written several hundred years before the life of Christ. And for me, Christmas this year has been a collision of ideas. And what I mean by that is, we've been talking about what it is to be a kingdom-minded person. And Isaiah writes about Christ's kingdom, the Messiah's kingdom would reign forever. And so the question is, what does that look like in Orlando, or wherever you're from, in 2009? How does that play out? And so we talked about a couple of different things. One, it says that in Isaiah 9, that the people walked around in darkness. And we talked about the first week that that's us. We are the people that are spiritually separated from God because of our sin and our sinfulness. And the text that was read earlier, it says, you will give him the name Jesus because he will save the people from their sin. And I want you to understand something. Jesus didn't come to save you from hell. Okay? Jesus came to save you from your sinfulness, the human condition. That was his mission. And we talked about that with us being in darkness, that God had a plan to redeem us, and that God has chosen to deal with our spiritual issue before our physical one. And so God's plan was that he would send a Messiah, someone to pay the price for our sin. And then the second week, we talked about that section in the scripture where it says, his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Prince of Peace. We talked about the different names of God and the different names of Jesus and how they're a thread throughout the entire Bible, and that you and I, as the sons and daughters of God, our identity is not in who we think we are, but it's truly who we belong to, whose we are. And that as the sons and daughters of God, you and I have not only a responsibility and an accountability, we have the privilege of being kingdom people, to be concerned about making sure that this message that the angels called the good news would be shared to all people. Then we talked this last Sunday about that this kingdom will be no end, it will be forever. And I challenged you with the idea that it was for every, not just forever in terms of time, but it was for all people, it was for all situations, for all circumstances. And this message of grace, which is, in a way, it's unfair. And what I mean by that is this, is that there are things that I've done that I don't deserve to be forgiven for. There are things that you've done that you don't deserve to be forgiven for. What we deserve is to spend eternity apart from God. But because of grace offered to all mankind, grace is fair. Being forgiven really isn't fair. And that's God's mercy to us. But that grace that He offers to us tonight starts at Christmas. And Christmas was the moment where God chose to invade mankind to show people what the kingdom was really like. And the entire Old Testament was all about people trying to figure out God and trying to put Him in a list and put Him in a box and put Him in behaviors. And God decided instead of talking to people, He was going to show them. And so Jesus came to establish a visible kingdom on earth, a visible way of life. And so much of what Jesus taught was, I know you've heard this 1,000 times. You know, your mom told you, your grandma and your great-grandma told you, but this is really the truth. And so Jesus was teaching us by example, not just His words, but by His example, what it is to be a kingdom thinker, to be a kingdom-minded person. And so tonight, as we get ready to take communion, here's what I want you to think about, because this is ultimately where I got to this month. You can't have Easter if you don't have Christmas. Okay? And so the collision of the idea that I want you to think about is this. We have made Christmas into this sterile, wonderful, sweet moment where a baby is born in a barn. Okay, and this is a real baby born to a real mom and a real dad. And those of you that have ever been through it, okay, I doubt that you went through childbirth without a few expressions. Many of them loud. My mind goes back to that routine with Bill Cosby and his wife. Okay, I've been present at a couple of children being born, and it's not exactly serene. Okay, it's not. It's not like the movies. It's not a postcard. Okay, it was ugly and it was messy. And that same little sweet Jesus, you know, the one that we think never cried, right? Of course he cried. He was a baby. That sweet Jesus, you know, that we think, you know, that when he was born, he came out and was already shining with the light on him. You know that thing? He was a baby. He was a human being. I want you to think about this. That sweet little Jesus laying in the manger died for you. That baby, the baby died for you. The baby came with one purpose in mind. You are the reason for the season. You and I needed a Redeemer. He tried all the other ways to get it to happen, and it didn't work. So he had to come, demonstrate the life to us, to die for us. And when you take the idea of the baby in the manger and force it into the cross, that is a really, really, really hard picture. Because that's who died for you. That little baby Jesus. And what I'd like for you to do is I just want you to close your eyes. And as we get ready for communion, I want you to listen to the words of this song, imagining that Jesus died for you. Oh, the story is surreal. Mary, what did you feel when you heard you would give birth to the King? And Joseph, were you afraid? Did you try to run away? I know I would do the same thing. And the shepherds in the night, when they heard words from the skies, I wonder what was going through their